This build probably can't exist in the new season. Your graphics card is absolutely going to be catching on fire, rendering this many tornadoes and frozen orb explosions. But what's up, guys? Let's go ahead and get started with the Season 4 tier list, in my personal opinion, on what will be the best. Keep in mind, we don't have the brand new seasonal power yet, but there are certain builds that are just performing way higher than other builds. I'm going to go ahead and help you guys on your eye strain by not showing you guys the increased tornado sizes as well as the double tornadoes, because it doesn't really look good for gameplay. So I'm going to have some variety of gameplay here in the background of the brand new builds, but going over the tier list of essentially what is going to be some of the better builds to go ahead and kind of look out for. Or maybe if you just want to play on the Eternal Realm, what are some of the things that you want to keep your eye on? So I'm going to be showing off, this is the entire tier list, by the way. I'm not going to make you guys wait, but there are 3 builds in particular that I want to go ahead and highlight at the very beginning, but I'm going to say these may have a high chance of getting nerfed because they're just like miles and miles ahead of basically most builds. Now, I also want to go ahead and mention that don't let any tier list discourage you from playing any of your favorite classes or builds. In Season 4, we have a brand new temper mechanic, and that will give your character so much more power. It doesn't matter what character or class or build that you're playing. Almost every single build, if you're interested in just doing open world content, maybe you want to do a couple Uber bosses, and that's kind of your experience in the season. You're not like, maybe someone like me that likes to go on top of the leaderboards. You want to go ahead and grind the gauntlet and getting rank 1, doing speed runs. If you don't care about that kind of stuff, then every single class will be good. We have the brand new tempering system that's going to make your characters have astronomical power. It's actually a huge boost to every single class. Every single build will, for the most part, be stronger. And we don't even have the seasonal mechanic power yet. And, I mean, we can already one-shot most things in the game. Now, with the tier list that I'm going over right now, I'm going to go ahead and mention that the 3 builds that I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to show gameplay of in the very beginning, these actually have a relatively high chance at getting nerfed. And even though I opened up the clip with the Barbarian with the, crazy amounts of Dust Devils, you can see I just one-shotted that boss too. But these more than likely will get some sort of a nerf, but like these other builds are actually crazier and higher than the other ones in terms of like how much you can get for power. But the Dust Devils will more than likely take a nerf in how many you can generate, and that's totally fine. The build is still absolutely amazing, but again, it's probably due to an issue with rendering. If you guys remember Ball Lightning, sometimes you would have too many rendered and the damage ticks couldn't even apply, so the server would just lag and your character would just die. So that was a huge issue. If there's anything that affects stability, I would say these have a high chance of getting nerfed, even though I didn't put the Whirlwind or the Double Swing Dust Devil build on the SSS tier. It's probably going to get nerfed a little bit, but I still think it's going to be good. And I'm playing in the gameplay right now without any of the crazy like sizes where it's going to hurt your eyes to kind of look at. So starting right off, I want to go ahead and mention Diablo has had many bugs in the game, and more than likely what is going to be the best build will probably be some crazy bug build. If you guys remember, in Season 2 we had the Tybalt bug where you were able to basically get more combo points than intended, and this lasted throughout the entirety of the season, which was actually very surprising. And then people were like, dude, there's no way you're going to be able to one-shot in Season 3, and then we did it again. I dropped a video and a build guide on how we can get another one-shot build. And yeah, this was a very, very popular build because, yeah, you could one-shot anything in the entire game. Now, you could still one-shot a lot of things. This is in Season 4 with my Double Swing Barb, and I hit for 56 mil. So, like, you could still definitely do some one-shotting things. But the top 3 builds, I would say, that are in the game, and I'm going to show you guys quick little snippets of gameplay from them, and then I'll talk about the other ones. So, Hurricane Druid can get basically trillions of damage. I'll show you guys that. Blight actually lets you shoot out more projectiles than one, and each one of those has its own lucky hit. The other one is Arc Lash / Teleport. You use it to cut the animation of, you can activate it, and because Teleport just lets you break animations, you're going to get extra cooldown on your teleport, and you can get to teleport so fast to the point where you're teleporting and just one-shotting most of the content with the exception of like the level 200 bosses. So let me go and give you guys some little like intro to the gameplay, and I want to give credit to all the YouTubers that have actually built these, and some of them I will show you guys as time goes on. I just wanted to make this video kind of short and fast versus giving you guys a build guide. But this one over here is by Rob2628. He's one of the best Diablo barbarians, I would say, and he's another fellow Diablo partner. But yeah, this druid build with the hurricane will actually just kind of stack up, and you could do trillions of damage. This one does the most number damage in the game, hands down. It is a little bit slow when you compare it to the speed of what I'm about to show you, but for bosses, I mean, this is like you can't get more damage than this. It's impossible. Now, there comes to a point where damage doesn't matter, so like you can still one-shot a lot of things with the tornado bar by just shouting it all at once. So does it really matter? Well, you have to factor that in. Do you care about doing the most damage in the game, or would you rather actually have a real build? Like the other barbarian build is probably going to be more realistic, but it still has to be on the SS tier because there's nothing that does the same amount of damage. The next build over here is by Makuna, and this is this is like the fastest build in the game, period. Now, again, it's not going to be the fastest build if you're going to one-shot any of the brand new 200 bosses, but this is basically a build where you just get to teleport and you just delete everything out of the game. This one, though, may actually bypass the nerfs, and the reason why is because it's to rank as a teleport, as well as just getting CDR. If they rework CDR, that would like ruin some other builds, so this is going to be a nightmare for them to nerf. I don't know if they're just going to make it so teleport does 0 damage, but they just gave it 500, X multiplicative damage on the skill tree. So if they take that away, then, well, I guess it's not going to be a build. Would make me kind of sad because, like, Barbarian had, like, a charge build that one-shot everything, but this may be just, like, too far beyond what they want to see in the game. So this is like the Arc Lash teleport build. The other thing over here, this is by Macro Bio Boy. This is a build where you are shooting Blight. There's a new amulet that lets Blight like basically shoot out multiple times, and each one of these can actually work on its lucky hit chance, and then you get your lucky hit chance to do shadow damage, and then you basically have 4 times the lucky hit that you're supposed to have, and yeah, you get, lots and lots of damage. So these builds are definitely what I would consider the top tier builds. If I was to say which build is the best in the game, and these don't get nerfed, that's what I would say 100%. Play those. Those are way better than anything. So now that we got that out of the way, because those are the builds that I think that have the potential to be nerfed. Now, going into the other builds over here, let's go ahead and kind of take this one at a time. Over here, we have the Double Swing as well as the Whirlwind, which you guys are seeing gameplay of, and I'll go ahead and kind of fast forward. I think we were just doing a world boss, which probably died in 1 second anyway, so let's go to some Helltides. So anything that has Dust Devils is actually really, really good. Again, I didn't scale it to have insane size, so it doesn't hurt your eyes for the gameplay. I specifically picked this where I didn't have the upgrades, but if you do get the upgrades, yeah, you can melt stuff super, super fast. Heck, if you want to do any sort of thing with like Overpower the Barbarian, you could run anything and get crazy damage in one shot most things, but most people want to not have to spend the resources to reach the Banished Lord's Talisman, and then also play with the whole Whirlwind, and then do the Slam for the big damage when you're swapping weapons, guaranteed overpower and guaranteed create, Red Ring of Fury. Like, I understand how the build works and stuff, but most people don't want to play that, and so I'm going to consider the better Barbarian builds to be anything with Dust Devils. Just run Dust Devils in your build. It's going to shred content. The 2 builds that work with it are Double Swing as well as Whirlwind. The next thing I want to go ahead and go over, and I can give you guys a variety of gameplay over here, is going to be the Frozen Orb Sorceress. So let me give you guys some gameplay of this. So this build over here, I will consider it definitely an S tier as well. It's so incredibly good for the fact that, well, it just activates and it spawns more frozen orbs, spawning all these things. It's probably one of the top tier builds. If you get Hollow Compress, your enchantments with the additional buff to the Frost Nova, you can get a pretty good size amount of extra bonus damage with your conjurations as well. So this is a really great build, super easy and beginner friendly play because everything is literally going to be frozen. All right, next up over here, I only put one class build in the A tier, and that is actually going to be the Necromancer with its summon build. We'll let this gameplay roll out so you can see a little bit more, and we can go to Summoner Necro in a moment here. But the Summoner Necro, the reason why I'm putting it in the A tier, it actually has S tier damage. Like, the build is actually really good. I just dropped my build guide on the Summoner Necro. You can melt the bosses, like you can melt Uber Lilith in 1 frame, like 1 second, you can kill it. The problem with the Necromancer is when you're just doing content in the game, I noticed the pit, like when I'm doing the pit, I can clear it much, much faster than like any single class. The reason why is the Necromancer, for some reason, the skeletons are dumb. Like, they just don't have the reaction time that I personally would want. And if they can buff that up, I'll definitely bump it up. It's a good build. It's just that the AI is just not up to par. Sometimes they'll just sit there, they wait for you, like, to get attacked, and then they're like, okay, I'll fight back. It's not just like they just fight. I just want them to fight. If you ever play Path of Exile, like where you get minions are aggressive, that's what I want in Diablo 4. So if they make that an aspect, we're just add it into the game, the Necromancer would feel so much better, but it's finally actually playable. The Summoner Necro is an absolute S tier build if the minions actually responded the way that you'd want them to actually respond. Next up over here, though, in the B tier, the Firewall Firebolt Sorceress, because again, this whole thing is all about what's actually new, because, well, that's the point of the new season, is to go ahead and give a tier list for you guys of kind of the newer stuff, but the newer stuff is pretty much going to be the best. They want us to kind of rotate through what we play. So Firewall Sorceress with the Fire Bolt. So how it works is you have to throw a firewall, then you shoot fire bolts into it, and then they split. It actually has really insane damage. The damage is absolutely like SS tier. It's crazy good, especially if you're doing like a lot of the bosses. However, there's one big downside. One, you have to throw the firewall, then you got to shoot through it, and then it's got to land. If you've ever played any action RPG, well, things don't hold still, so getting these things to overlap is not what I would consider the easiest thing to do, and on top of that, it's very tedious to play, so your clear speed is objectively going to be way slower than just throw an orb, throw everything, or just teleport, destroy everything. It's just night and day difference. Next thing is the rapid fire brand new rogue ring that lets your rapid fire basically shoot out like mini rockets. The new rockets, they do a really weird arc. I wasn't really a fan of it. The reason why, by the way, all the rogue stuff is a lot lower. The damage is there. If you make a stun grenade rogue, it's actually pretty good. Just don't play the flurry variant. But the stun grenades actually are pretty dang good. However, rogue has this problem where they're just like dead all the time. If you play rogue in the PTR, you know what I'm talking about, where like everything just feels like you get one-shotted. This was a thing that they originally had in Diablo 3 where Rogue, well, it was Demon Hunter in Diablo 3, where they just had basically a chance to dodge, which is kind of how they actually made Dexterity, which it gives you dodge. But then if you pump up all the monster stats, you don't have a good source of like consistent damage reduction. You just like, oh, get hit by it, you're just dead. Like, you don't have fortification. There is a way to build fortification on dodge, but like realistically, it's just too squishy. And I thought maybe I'm building it wrong. And then I heard Woody on one of his videos. He was like, yeah, Rogue and Season 4 just feels way too squishy. I'm like, thank God, because I thought I was building it bad. And like, I've been playing Rogue for a long time. Like, what's going on with this season? And Rogue just feels way too squishy. Now, I do know that there is a build that with Rogue, you can actually become immortal. And I put it in air quotations because if you get hit by a dot, you're still dead. But you can actually become immortal with the Rogue. It's very difficult to play, and pretty much, I would say most people, with the exception of the people that are interested in maybe doing the speedrun content, yeah, it's not going to be for you. So I'm putting Rogue here in the B tier on basically like as the highest one is the B tier because they just melt. Like the brand new like bosses that come out at the end of the pit, they see the Rogue and then you're just dead instantly, and I hate that. It is a big pet peeve of mine to have a build that's so squishy. The damage is fine though. You can play a lot of really cool builds, and we'll talk about them in a moment here. But the build is just way too squishy. That's why they're in the B tier. The damage is fine though. But as far as the new rapid fire stuff, it's weak. Again, if you're comparing it to like the Frozen Orb stuff and the way it arcs, it's just not very consistent. The tornadoes, they go out in every direction, they just delete stuff, and the Rogue's like, I gotta aim, I gotta maybe build up combo points. It just takes too long. And then I put Upheaval as well as Hoda here, even though these got some changes. I actually did test it out, and I'll give you guys gameplay of Hoda and Hellhammer without doing the, you know, the little spin whirlwind. I understand how the build works, and at the high tier, that's what people may want to do for the 1%. But majority of players that were playing Hoda last season, they don't want to sit there and do the little spin thing. I get how it works, but like most people just want to Hoda one-shot things. It's not as good as it used to be. It's still pretty good. However, if you want it to feel like the previous season, you need absolutely cracked out gear. I'm talking, you need to get those masterworks perfect on a lot of things, and on top of that, again, if you want to do like the bosses, you're just better off on doing like the tornado builds. But you can still one-shot most of the open world content if you build it right and get like some uber unique, specifically just getting Grandfather as well as Hollow Crest. That will really help out. And then stun grenades, I put it in B tier. It's actually pretty good, but again, Rogue just simply does not have the survivability. And even though you can freeze things with it, it still lacks the power punch that other builds have, which just let you one-shot, because you can't just freeze the boss. Alright, let's roll some Necro Minion gameplay. But the next thing I wanted to talk about is actually the little like aspect over here. And there's a new tempering thing where you can throw in some sort of damage on some sort of element or shadow poison. You can throw on some damage on a lucky hit proc. Honestly, you make this with any build, you'll pretty much just have a B tier build. You can just have fast attack speed, high lucky hit chance, and this will actually be able to clear out a lot of content. And I think that's going to be maybe one of the stronger builds actually in the game, surprisingly, if you can temper the things to actually give you really, really high damage on that. And on top of that, you also have, like, if you can get towards the point where a lot of your other pieces of gear will have bonus lucky hit chance. I mean, there are builds that can actually hit twice, like Arc Lash in theory can actually hit twice on a crit. So if you get your Master Crafted on crit and you have 100% crit Arc Lash can do 0 damage, but then you just have basically it hitting twice, having really high chances for those to proc. Although lucky hit chance on Arc Lash got absolutely nerfed basically in Season 0 of the game because it was actually pretty OP before. But basically anything that would have a high lucky hit chance is really good. The next thing is actually Poison Imbue. And while Poison Imbue didn't have there's not a new power with like a aspect or basically a new unique, what there is there's a temper with the Poison Imbue, or basically it's any of your imbue, to last way longer than it's supposed to. So if you get maybe 10, 15 bonus imbues on your Poison Imbue, and basically you could have it up without having to wait for the little puddle to spawn in and then you get infinite aspects. This could be something to consider, because what really sucks is like the pool may be in one area, and if you're trying to like progress, it's going to take some time. Plus, that's a dot build, so it's going to be arguably slower. But for bosses, again, if we're comparing the Rogue, where you'd have Twisting Blades and you have to impale it, I know you can make it so it lasts a lot less in terms of its duration. That is a thing that you can do with Twisting Blades with the brand new temper, but it still has to go and spin around, and then it's going to take like 3 or 4 seconds for a boss. And again, if you're looking at the higher end, then, you know, I used to do speed runs, and so the difference between like a 5-second boss kill and a 1-second boss kill actually matters. And you might think, well, it's not that big of a deal, I don't care about it. You do care about it, actually, even if you're a casual. And the reason why is because a lot of the endgame higher tier pits, a lot of stuff will absolutely one-shot you. Doesn't matter if you're playing Barbarian, a lot of stuff, just go watch any content creator. Even though I think Rob had a grandfather that was also greater affix rolled on life. We're talking like, I even rolled like 60k life on my barb. If you push higher tiers in the pits, you are usually dead within a couple hits of the boss. So that's where it actually does matter. So that's why I'm putting it in the B tier. Anyways, moving on here to the next category, which is going to be, oh, if I could do this. Okay, it was being difficult. All right, so in terms of what I consider bait, so like, I would suggest staying far away from these unless they buff them. But, you know, my job as a Diablo partner is to tell Blizzard, hey, you guys super under-delivered on these skills. So the minions on the Druid, I haven't seen a really good Druid build. I saw a couple people try it, and what seems to like happen, and I'm going to say some of these, I haven't tested all these, just as, you know, take these with a grain of salt. But, like, as far as I'm aware of, this actual summoner druid, where you're, like, relying on the pets to do things, yeah, you can rely on the pets to get a lot of damage, and then there's the Poison Creeper bug, and so you can do Blur Beast, and that was, like, in the previous season. But, like, specifically, just basically making it like a minion build, right? Like the Necromancer, where you just have most of them kind of just walk around just dunking on things. In the high tier content, the wolves just are dead. That's a huge problem. And if you try to kill the boss when your minions are dead and you're a minion build, well, it doesn't really work. So they need to make it so I think that these pets just don't die. I don't know if they're just going to give it immortality or what, but like those pets, they're just dead. I don't know how else to say it. That's at least my understanding of what I've seen, but I have not tested that one out myself. Everything else, pretty much I've been testing myself or have like seen. But as far as what I've seen on the Druid side, it's a little bit lackluster when again, you're comparing Hurricane to this. It's a joke of difference. The next thing is Incinerate. So that is the build where you're just going to hold still and you don't move if you want to get damage. That is the worst idea ever in Diablo 4 because the way this game was designed is for you to move around and actually shoot, right? So the reason why I think it's just absolutely terrible is because, well, you're just holding perfectly still, and that's going to be bad, obviously. And then the main other thing that Incinerate got that was new, because they did get something new, you can basically shoot out 3 Incinerates at once, but it does lower damage. Now, if you want to get the big damage, you basically shotgun it by putting it in the perfect position. But if you've ever played any action RPG, the enemies move, and that makes things difficult. And on top of that, if you're holding perfectly still, what happens is when something dies, it needs to explode like 10 times for whatever in action RPGs. I really think this is a really bad system. I don't get why action RPGs in general do this, but when you kill a monster, why does it have to explode? Like, I just want to pick up my loot. And with Incinerate, how it works is your damage ramps up after you channel it. I just genuinely don't think this is a good skill in the game. This would probably need to be completely reworked as a skill to make it basically like Whirlwind. If you make it like Whirlwind, cool. If it's not, then I don't think anyone's going to care about it. It's really bad. As far as like testing the actual like pinpoint accuracy on it, if you want to get the shotgun, it's terrible. Next up is the Summon Barbarian. They made a brand new unique pair of pants that gives you, so Call of the Ancients does massive amounts of damage to get these brand new abilities. Sounds good, right? No, it's terrible. it lasts for 6 seconds. So if you're satisfied with 6 seconds of fun and then lots of seconds of doing nothing, hey, that's your build, man. But it doesn't even do the same amount of damage that I can do with just one of the tornadoes. like I wish I was joking with the amount of damage that you deal with it. But that's the reality of it, man. Like, these things come out so underbaked that it's genuinely like a joke when I see that, like, oh man, I'm really excited to try out Summon Barbarian. And I was comparing it like to some of the other stuff. These do less damage than my Necro Minions, and my Necro Minions last forever. Like you could test this out for literally 10 seconds. Like, I'm not trying to be mean here, but for constructive criticism, test your stuff out for at least 10 seconds. Like, the damage numbers are so incredibly low on it, and it doesn't even last that long. Like, if they one-shot everything in the entire game when they were active, then I would say, okay, you know, it's powerful. But when you're trying to build around, like, because they literally said that on the Barbarian, like, you get 100% of the stats. So like, oh man, this is going to be broken OP. But the problem is they don't last long enough, they don't do that much damage. So my suggestion over here is make these literally last forever, and then maybe you can make it so the Barbarian deals 0 damage. Just say, like, your skills deal 0 damage, but now your Call of the Ancients lasts forever, and, you know, it has all these buffs. Then you have a completely different build that you would build into, right? You would still try to build up your own stats, but this actually makes it, you know, a point to actually make it so your buff to the Barbarian, when you said that it was going to get 100% of your stats for the minions, which are, there's only, I believe, the Call of the Ancients as the minions for the Barbarian. There's another one where, like, when you activate an effect, your, Call of the Ancients may activate this one of the same effects. It depends on the skill, though. That would have been kind of cool, too, so that, like, you do damage, and it could be, or your damage could be reduced by 90%, right? Let's just do that. Your damage is reduced by 90%, and then your other, like, you know, minion kind of follows up with it. Then we have kind of a cool, like, shadow build. I like that. And then you have a minion build, too. Anyways, with Flurry, Flurry's buffs make this still like a joke of a skill. The reason why it's so bad is because the animation takes so long. It's basically like, if you look at, like, the numbers, I know in Season 0, it was like 1/5 of the DPS of Twisting Blades, and it's because the skill just takes too long to activate. Twisting Blades is damage, 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 whereas Flurry is damage, damage. And the reason why I'm mentioning it like that is because it's the easiest way to kind of visualize what I'm trying to say right here. It's because Flurry has to attack 4 times, whereas Twisting Blade just does all the damage with its one animation. I know it technically pulls out and then it spins around, and it used to hit 3 times, but now it's 2. But it's still just so underperforming. Now, the reason why I put it on bait is the stun grenade Flurry build is memes. The better way to actually play in the game is, it's going back to the same thing. Like, if you tested this out for literally 10 seconds, you would understand what I'm talking about. The brand new ring, where it gives you the ability to have stun grenades at a 30% proc rate, which is the perfect roll. I had the perfect roll. It does less damage than an aspect that you can put on a 2-hander. Like, why? Heck, even on a 1-hander, the thing does actually more damage, because I think it hits for like 10k. Remember, these damage numbers scale with all your other damage, so it goes up way higher. But why is the unique that has a 30% proc rate do less damage than the aspect that I can just put on my piece of gear and have 100% proc rate on a 2x, because it activates twice on stealth entering and breaking it. So I get 2 of those 10,000s versus, I think it's like 3k is kind of what it is. It's like 3 or 4k. It's one of the newer things. But it does way less damage, and that's at a 30% rate. What are these numbers? Like, it just absolutely does not make any sense. So you could triple, you could quadruple, maybe you can almost give this thing 10 times the damage. If you gave it 10 times the damage, maybe it would be a little bit, like, more meta. Maybe I put it in, like, the A tier. But, like, I'm talking about not just stun grenades in general. Like, stun grenades in general are actually, like, kind of okay. It's just what I'm talking about. Flurry to do stun grenades, because that's supposed to be, like, the synergy. You have a brand new unique that came out, make the uniques good. There is also kind of a problem, this is almost like a side rant here, where uniques in Diablo 4 are just garbage, and I just don't get why. Like, have these uniques open up the doors for unique builds, what a unique is supposed to do, right? Versus we have Windforce, we buffed it again for the 20th time. Oh, it's still just garbage. We have so many of these uniques that are just absolutely terrible in the game that have no place in the game. Anyways, lastly over here, I didn't see any builds of Rend or Landslide, but those are 2 new things that Rend just got, like, numerical stats and, like, a little bit of change. And there's also, like, a passive that got changed, so it should be a little bit better. Didn't see anyone play it. Didn't get enough time to test it out myself. And Landslide has this other, like, proc on, I believe, a unique. Didn't get to test that out, but those are 2 things that I would kind of be on the lookout for. But I haven't seen anyone, I didn't get to test them out myself, but those are 2 other things that would be on this list that I would take into consideration. If you guys have any, like, videos of brand new Ren build for Season 4 or a landslide build that is like actually good, please let me know in the comments or somewhere, because I want to see how good those were, because I didn't see anyone play them. I didn't test them out myself. And that pretty much wraps up what I think is going to be good. So, let's throw this up on the screen. So pretty much, most people only want to know what's the best builds, and this is going to be the best. But again, take it with a grain of salt over here with the top 3, as I want to say those have huge potentials to be nerfed. Maybe we can even like show off. I'm going to consider it right here. Rogue right here is what I would consider to be one of the worst classes in the game, and that is actually because they don't have what I would consider a really, really good build, because they're too squishy. That's the problem that I would want to say that Rogue has at the moment. But that's my thoughts. Anyways, you guys let me know yours down below. But that's going to be the tier list as far as the classes go. It's more so the builds, but the builds tie into the class, so it's better than just making a class tier list. Because, again, the tier list would be, I would put S tier on every single class, except for the Necro, as well as, well, it's kind of weird, though, because Necro, that Shadow Blight build is an absolute SS tier. Like, it's so amazing. However, I want to say it's going to get nerfed. So basically, all the classes have what I would consider an S tier build, technically, because this is the PTR tier list, right? And we don't even have the seasonal buff. But just Rogue is just so far behind because it's just too squishy. That's my wrap up, though. Basically, all classes can be S tier if we're including everything that's broken and OP. And then, unfortunately, I got to say, my favorite class, the Rogue, is just too squishy. But if you guys enjoyed the video, I know it was kind of a long one, but there was just so much to talk about. If you guys enjoyed it, though, subscribe, drop a like on it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And let me know if I missed out on anything else that was really good.